Alrighty crew, I want to share something with you that will hopefully help you understand how your trunk works. And for some this will alleviate pain. For me it certainly has. For others it will improve athleticism and rotation or breathing. I mean, all of those things are good reasons to do it. It'll only take a few minutes, and this could be something which saves you years or really takes you to the next level of your performance. So we want to understand the position of the ribs relative to the pelvis. Now, a lot of people talk about pelvic tilt, right? So like posterior tilt, tucking under, and anterior tilt, rocking forward. But we don't often talk about how the ribs move. We often focus down here, but not enough in being free through the bottom of the rib cage. When I say free through the bottom of the rib cage, I'm talking about the ability to keep the pelvis neutral, but move the ribs back or forward. A lot of people can do this quite easily. They can kind of collapse in at the TL or thoracolumbar junction, and they can flare their ribs. And so what you'll often see is people who can round through their lower back, but they're quite stiff through the mid and upper back. This usually means that the lower back is going to take on a lot of work. So in my case, I used to do this a lot. So you can see I have like hypertrophied lumbar spine muscles. Now, having a strong lower back isn't a problem by any means, and you can train lumbar flexion. But if you don't have access to tilting down and shifting back of the rib cage and this expansion of the back ribs, then you'll be relying on an overly muscular strategy to use this part of your body rather than being able to rely on fascia. Now, fascia is the thick, stretchy, elastic connective tissue, which in this case connects between one side of your low ribs and the other side of your pelvis, kind of like an X or a bit like a diamond. So when you see that Christmas tree on some people's back, I don't know if you've ever seen that, the fascia kind of sits under that, or fascia sits between sheaths of muscle. So we want to be able to use this elastic white connective tissue system to transfer force from the lower to the upper body without always having to use a muscular strategy. So yeah, when you see big bulky lower back muscles but the inability to move the rib cage freely, it's a sign that the lumbar spinal muscles have been contracting eccentrically or lengthening, and concentrically or shortening under load repetitively. That's what makes a muscle grow. Now, that's not necessarily an optimal performance strategy for everyone. For some people, we get caught up in that strategy, and what we need is to grow through the mid-back muscles and the glutes. So if I were to show you what that looks like, if I were to stand, it would be more like this, rather than seeing a lower back bulge. Again, it's not inherently a problem, but it might not be the best way to transfer heavy forces and loads through the body. Rather than seeing that, you would see a shape that's a bit more like this. So you can see this part of my back around my low ribs is more full, and there's more of a pointiness through to my sit bones. And when I'm in this position, what it feels like is that my low ribs are kind of connected and shortened down to my sit bones. So I'm using this kind of tension here to create stability and strength. And it feels like I'm using elasticity or connective tissue transfer through my lower back rather than burning out those muscles. So if you're in this position and you find you burn out your lower back muscles really quickly, then what I want you to understand is I'm not just arching and rounding like this. That would tighten them up. Instead, I'm just looking to send low ribs towards sit bones. And then I can extend my upper back too. And especially if you lift your heels a bit, you feel a bit elastic. What we're looking for is to feel the tension through here and through the mid back, and not quite as much in the lower back. So another way to explain this is if we're looking for elastic tension here, we want to stretch an elastic band to create the strength rather than have to squeeze the muscles. it would be like I had a backpack of elastic bands and they'd be attaching to my belt here. I'm going to pull those over my shoulders and I'm going to bulge my back ribs, expanding the ribs into the band. Now you can see that the more I can create space, like an accordion, through the lower back ribs, the more I can expand that band and kind of create like a tense elastic support through my lower back. It might look like I'm just rounding my thoracic excessively. I want you to look for it more here, not just in the up back, but through the ribs. And then as you get better at that, dropping the sternum down and shifting the ribs back relative to the pelvis, then you can start to keep it and learn to expand. And now you see that prominence through my mid-back muscles, the neutrality of my lumbar spine, the natural S-curve. And you have this nice surface over which the scapulae can move as well. Look at that. So you can start off just by sitting here. Breathe in fully without letting the ribs flare or travel forward. So, and then breathe out, keeping a little bit of balloon. I've exhaled fully, but I'm not empty like this. There's still some pressure here, and I'm just maintaining that really nice stacking position so that I'm using the alignment of my body to generate stability and to transfer force, rather than having to muscle it and rotate. So really, these connections across the ribs and body, you can see they're decelerators. They're not designed to crank things across. They're not designed to tense up and stop rotation. It's an elastic interplay. When you're running, if you're punching, if you're throwing, you need to learn how to use the elasticity in this area by positioning the ribs and pelvis in the right way. So that's my chat. If you want to learn more about this, shoot me a DM.